Hey guys, this is Ben, and welcome to the Hardcore Punk Project on 92.5 FM in Kamloops. Today we're going to talk about The Ocean, their new album Phanerozoic 2 Mesozoic Cenozoic, on Metal Blade Records to be released 25th September 2020. Radiant collapse, planetary scale, our indecent errors paved the way. Truth long known before our last deeds, and the world we know will go down in flames. Founded by guitarist and composer Robin Staps at the dawn of the millennium, The Ocean immediately stood apart, coalescing around a shared vision of limitless sonic exploration and heaviness delivered straight from the gut. The German ensemble quickly gained a formidable reputation as standard bearers of the nebulous but unstoppable post-metal movement. So today I'm joined by Robin, so thanks for joining me here on the X. How are you doing today?
Pretty good. It's already 10 p.m. in Europe, in Berlin, where I am right now. So I just got home, had dinner, and I'm preparing for a movie now with my girlfriend.
Is like 1 p.m. here.
Yeah, right. You're in Vancouver or on the West Coast, right?
We're in Kamloops.
Yeah. Okay.
So first off, you okay with the teen interviewing you?
Sure.
All right. Good, because this would have been my shortest interview ever. All right. Do you know what the best parts of being a radio host is?
Tell me.
Getting to listen to the albums before the release and talking to the bands like I'm doing right now.
Sure, I can imagine, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Early access.
This album musically describes every period and epic up to the present time. It could be taken as a concept album. Am I correct on this?
You could interpret it this way, yes.
All right. Well, let's start with track 1, Triassic, 8 minutes 32 seconds long. So you start off light, then you go heavier, and then back and forth. I like it. Can you tell us a bit about it?
The track is a bit of a weird song on the record, or for us in general. It was a track that came together in 2016, 2017, like most of the songs on this record, actually. And it has a bit of an old vibe to it. Some recorded in Armenia on tour last year, actually, with a traditional Armenian flutes player. That was something that happened rather spontaneously while we were in Yerevan for about a week. But the initial song idea came to me after our second trip to India in 2014. So it's actually already a bit older, that track, than most of the record. And it's also a bit weird because the main heavy part of that song is a very unconventional beat in heavy music. It's kind of almost like a reggaeton beat taken to the metal level. And we at first we were kind of joking about it when we played it in the room, but it ended up working out really, really well. And so yeah, we decided to keep it. And yeah, the song has a bit of an Oriental vibe to it. Also the guitars, and I think it's an interesting introduction to the record because it doesn't really tell you much what's going to happen afterwards.
All right. Now I'm also added something into the script where I'm going to talk about each period and epic and what something important happened in it, because scientific stuff is the best.
Right on.
So the Triassic period is when the first dinosaurs started to appear. Did you choose metal or did metal choose you?
I guess it was a mutual story of liking that occurred rather simultaneously.
I chose metal because I'm like totally metal and stuff, and it's also the pace of my mind is going, so yeah.
Right on.
All right. Track 2, Jurassic to Cretaceous, 13 minutes 24 seconds. The Jurassic period was when pretty much every mainstream dinosaur lived, okay? And the airborne ones came in the Cretaceous, and the intro gave me spoopy vibes. intro sounded very spooky.
Yeah, right.
Can you tell us a bit about how this song came about?
This one has been in the making forever. It's one of those tracks that was just never finished. I've been working on it over the course of like at least 4 summers, and it never got to the point where I was entirely satisfied with it. But at the same time, I always had the motivation to go back to it and continue working on it the following writing session. So it's been a beast. It's a really long song with quite intricate arrangements. And finally I finished it in 2017, which was when all these tracks were more or less finished. We started recording drums for both albums in 2018. So what you hear now on this record is actually already a bit old. It's already been been done for like 3 years. It's a very long song. It goes through a lot of different moods and vibes musically. And lyrically, what happened at the end of the Cretaceous, as most people know, is that this giant asteroid hit the Yucatan Peninsula in Mexico and wiped out those dinos that you already mentioned, nearly all of them, and pretty much all other life on Earth as well. And this is kind of the red thread that goes not only through this record, the as well. You see two celestial bodies section event, which ended the dinos and almost all life on Earth back then. And the lyrics to that track also make reference to take into the human level to arrive as melancholy, basically that, an impending collision on a planetary scale, which is exactly what Jonas from Catatonia, or guest vocalist on that track, is singing. As people, as individuals, with the certainty that the end is nigh. That's what goes through the lyrics of that song. And it is, like I said, somehow the centerpiece of not only the Mesozoic half of the record, but the record as a whole, pretty much.
Yep. And with that, the Cretaceous period marks the end of the Mesozoic era and into the Cenozoic era.
Correct.
I ask this question a lot. All ages shows, what's it like in Germany for all ages shows?
You know what? We don't actually have even that distinction of all ages shows versus non-all ages shows. The legal drinking age in Germany is 18 years. And drinking laws are very liberal. So like nobody actually cares if like how old you are when you want to order a beer at a bar. So we just don't have that separation. It very rarely occurs that somebody checks your ID if you want to go to a show. There's lots of younger kids, mixing with an older crowd, and it's always been like that. It's just part of the culture over here. So it's something that only became aware of when I was living in the States when I was 16. That things are quite different over there. So we really just don't have that separation. The separation comes from the crowd, because just there's some bands that bring out a younger crowd, and then there's the bands that bring out all the grandpas like myself. But there's no laws prohibiting certain people to see certain types of shows, or nothing based on alcohol or something like that.
Yeah, here it's absolutely ridiculous. You have to be 18 or older to enter the Blue Grotto just to see your favorite band that was played on the radio.
Right.
Reminds me of when the laws were different back here in the 80s. Back then, big bands, before they were big, like Green Day, they used to come here and play at the roller rink, along with the Smalls and Operation Ivy and a couple of other punk bands like that, and they were all ages shows. No alcohol allowed.
Yeah, it's quite odd for us to see that. And on all the North American tours we've done, I was always surprised to find these venues where it's so segregated that you have people who drink in cages, sometimes outside of the venues.
Yeah.
And then people who don't on the other side. It's European. It doesn't make Europe a better or a worse place, really. It's just a different culture.
Right. Track 3, Paleocene. You went full heavy on this one.
Yep, pretty much. Yeah, it's a pretty short track. It's a bit of a homage to a Swedish band called Breach. It was really important for me when I was growing scene of the 90s. They were one of the bands really pushing boundaries, and their singer Thomas Halbom actually sings on that track.
All right.
He's an old friend of mine. He's already been guesting on, on 3 other records of ours, on Aeolian, Precambrian, and Pelagial. And so it was something that we already knew works really well. And that track is quite Breach inspired. It's short and heavy. The guitar work has a bit of a black metal vibe to it, you know, those dark minor chord progressions, and it's pretty straight to the point.
Yeah. Another thing about black metal is it's pretty much just all chromatic notes. Like, it just doesn't follow any scale whatsoever, but who cares? Theory is bad.
Right on.
Who inspired you the most in terms of music?
Well, difficult to pin down to just like one name. Obviously, as you grow up, you know, there's lots of artists and bands that play an important role in certain stages in your life. For me, the first band that evoked my love for guitar music was Guns N' Roses. When I was like 11 or 12, and then I eventually started listening to things like Rage Against the Machine in the early 90s and Helmet, and then I got into hardcore through Sick of It All, and you know, like all the New York stuff, Side by Side and Judge and Gorilla Biscuits and all this type of stuff. So all these bands meant something and were very inspirational for me at that time. But I think as that always, and you know, these bands listen to a lot of electronic music and a lot of instrumental music, a lot of post rock. So entirely different things than what I was growing up. But really difficult to say a few names. The Swans, New Roses, Refused, Breach, all equal importance for me personally.
All right. What my biggest inspirations were, well, back when I was like 4 or 5, I started listening to AC/DC.
Right.
And then I got into heavier stuff like Behemoth and Napalm Death. Yeah, he's frozen.
Yeah. In 2001, I think. Like 2001, and we also played with them in Vegas once in New York City. It was a really bizarre show.
Right. Next song is
Are you there?
No, not the next song.
Yep.
Other than metal, what genres do you listen to?
Like I already said, a lot of electronic music. I lead into the whole and also the more ambient stuff like Brian Eno and, you know, things like that. I listen to a lot of post rock and instrumental, contemporary Berlin DJs here that won't find, and also lots of dark jazz, things like Kilimanjaro, Dark Jazz Ensemble, for example, but also real jazz like Todd Gustafsson Trio, Esbjörn Svensson Trio, things like that. My musical taste is very diverse and very eclectic, and it really depends on the day. There's a few things that I really don't find any connection with. I don't know, I just never got into reggae. Yeah, but there's not much. Everything has some sort of value, really.
All right, now on to the next song, Eocene. This is probably about the Eocene extinctions, right? Or something related to them.
Well, to be fair, there were extinction events in almost all of the periods on these records. It's a recurring theme and a recurring topic that without all the songs make direct reference to whatever happened in these periods. We did approach that a bit more free at all. And when you write lyrics and have a human being sing these lyrics, then obviously they need to have relevance for humans. So we approach the lyrics from a meta level usually, and not just talking about the species that lived or died during these periods. So Eocene is it's a very personal track. It's actually it's a bit of an, let's call it a recycling of a musical idea that was already used in the track Jurassic Cretaceous, this guitar line. That's like the basic theme of that track. And we were just playing that in the room, and Paul, our drummer, was playing a completely different beat over it. And at first I was just yelling at him like, focus, dude. But then it actually really worked. And so that became another song, basically. Here a bit on this record, there's lots of cross references between the songs and the lyrics as well. So, for example, some lyrics that appear in Triassic will appear again in Holocene, in the last Triassic Cretaceous appears here again in Eocene. So there's lots of cross references between the tracks, and I got carried away there. I'm sorry.
That's all right. Pizza or salad or vodka?
I think I'm the salad guy, but I also really love pizza.
Not
And I
so
also
much
love
on the
vodka.
vodka?
It's a
No,
difficult
never
choice
mind.
that you're giving me there. Yeah, no, vodka is great. I do like straight up good clean vodka, definitely. All has its legitimacy.
All right. Track 5, Oligocene. This is a complete instrumental, and really the only thing that happened during this epic was the Hot and Impact crater and none of it. Can you tell us a bit more about how this song came about?
That track was written by Paul, our drummer. It's one of 2 tracks on the record that he wrote. And it's the function in the great scheme of the record is it's a bit of a transitional track between the first full of arrangements and musical ideas, and at the same time quite heavy, and then the second half, which is more thinned out, more spacious in a way, and more minimalist with regards to songwriting. And this track kind of transitions from that very full first half into the more sparsely instrumented second half. And in that, it somehow compares to certain tracks on Pelagial as well. Like Signals of Anxiety, for example, had a similar function. That record also started off really playful with a lot of things happening in the beginning, and then the second half of it was a lot more stripped down. And there were also certain tricks that kind of like transition from this first into the second half. So it's comparable to that. I don't know why that always happens to me to write records like that. Start in one place and finish in a quite different place and become this journey. But yeah, that's the function of it. It's quite ambient. And it was all mostly programmed drums initially, and intended to make that on the record. But then, so we asked, since we were already on tour at the time, we couldn't go back in the studio. We asked Peter, our synth guy, who wasn't on that tour. He had to stay home for personal reasons while we were out with Leprous, and he recorded drums for that track very last minute in November last year, like a month before we actually mixed the track. And that really gave it a nice human touch somehow, although it is very mechanical drumming. It still kind of sounds like a machine, but it's actually by a real person. And I think in the end, there was a choice to do it like that.
Okay. I always gotta ask which female artist you would like to collaborate with, but I'm gonna mix it up this time with what German female pop artist would you like to collaborate with?
There are none, dude. There's not much exciting pop music coming. There's not much exciting music coming out of Germany, no matter if male or female. It's just a very, very boring. So that'll be a tough one to answer.
I did research and I barely found anything. I found two.
What was that?
Sarah Connor's real name is Sarah Terenzi, and she works as a songwriter, singer, and apparently a TV personality as well.
Who's that?
Sarah Connor, real name Sarah Terenzi. She works as a
Yeah.
songwriter, singer, and TV personality. And Anne-Marie Eifeld. Anne-Marie Eifeld is a German singer and songwriter, best known for being a former contestant of the German version of the Idols franchise.
Oh, well, there you go. Research, sir.
All right. Track 6, Miocene. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Track 6, Miocene and Pliocene.
Okay.
The Miocene era, nothing really much except for the another extinction called the Middle Miocene disruption. Also, the apes began to evolve early Miocene. How did the song come about? Was this written by your drummer?
It was. Matter of fact, it's the third. He wrote 2. He actually wrote 3 tracks. Oligocene, Miocene, and tell that it's a bit of a different approach to songwriting than most of the other tracks which I wrote. Yeah, it's a pretty straightforward, quite simple track, but very effective. And yeah, there's not really that much to say about that song. It's the lyrics to that track are going back to the idea of eternal recurrence, which is one of the main threads that goes through the Phanerozoic records, both of them, the first part already. It's the idea that everything happens over and over again in infinite time and space. So basically a concept of time that is cyclical rather than linear. And if a lot of examples for that. In that, for example, continents have collided and drifted apart and collided again, and all these extinction events were spoke about, things happening over and over again. And this is kind of a topic that goes through both of these records and is woven into the fabric of a lot of the Nietzsche, German philosopher, was also an avid fan of that idea. And there's some quotes in Cambrian, for example, the opening track of the first Phanerozoic album, and also in this track, the recurring idea of eternal recurrence, if you want, so within the context of the record.
Favorite guitar brand?
Tricky one, but I have to say Paul Reed Smith. I love those guitars. I have 2 of them, but I also really like Moza guitars out of the Netherlands. Been playing live for a long time. So if I have to pick one, it would be very hard. And I have a beautiful old Ampeg guitar. A lot of people don't even know that Ampeg ever made instruments, but they did. And I have an Ampeg stud, which I bought in a pawn shop somewhere in Western Canada many years ago.
Yeah. Everybody keeps talking about PRS guitars. I haven't had the chance to play one yet.
They're awesome. They're really awesome.
What's the tuning for this album? Or
really easy to play, and yeah, it's most. And there are only a few exceptions. Triassic is in standard D, but almost all the other, real quick, is a standard. The tracks are a standard. Yeah, that's it. So only Triassic is standard D.
All right.
We went back to standard tunings with the Phanerozoics. All the previous records were always written in drop tune, but I just kind of got bored with it and wanted to do something else for a while. And then, yeah, I kind of got stuck on that for these two records.
All right. Track 7, Pleistocene. This is known as the Ice Age, and also when the first modern humans started to appear. Around right in the middle of the Pleistocene epoch is when they started to appear. How did this song come about?
This track is it's quite a journey. It starts really mellow and kind of catchy, and then ends up in a proper black metal part, which is the first time we've kind of done that on the record. But it just kind of felt right and naturally evolved into this direction. It has a very cold vibe to it, which fits the the climate during most of the Pleistocene, which was icy and cold. And I think that track really conveys that vibe. And yeah, we also picked that up in the artwork. Like if you look at the trifold or the packaging of the vinyl, the outside is all images of these two celestial bodies colliding. It's all images of rock, basically. And open it, inside it's all ice, referencing the Pleistocene Holocene. Yeah, so that's basically how the song came about. It's a very personal track about a person drifting away into depression, and also that's also taken up by the whole ice theme in a way. Someone getting cold, involuntarily cold, and yeah, it's a very personal track on the record.
All right. Now, this brings me to my next question, which is, what is it? All right. Will you accept the challenge from me?
Sure.
All right. Now, I've asked this question to all the bands I've interviewed. I can't say their names due to my producers telling me otherwise. But the challenge is for you and your band to do a music video with the German polka and a metal remix of it.
I don't think that is going to happen. German folk music is unfortunately a very embarrassing type. Quite envious of some of our other European countries that really have much more to offer than we do in terms of traditional music. It's just total shit.
Okay. So, second band to have refused the challenge.
There you go.
Alright. Lastly, tell us about the last track, and it's also the current epic we're in. The Holocene epic.
Yeah.
How did this song come about?
It's a track that's almost entirely getting by without guitars. So in that, it's quite a unique song for us. It was also written by Paul. It's the third track on the record that he wrote, and it's based on a very repetitive theme that just keeps going on. Very static beat, and like I said, almost no guitars. There's a couple of crunch guitars happening through the track, but most of it is synths and vocals. Yeah, I think that track was a little bit inspired by the last Ulva record, the assassination of Julius Caesar. We were listening to that a lot when Paul wrote that track, and I kind of I kind of could tell where that was coming from in a way. Great record and great band. And we wanted to make the record become a bit more dominated by electronics towards the second half, as we're approaching the current era, basically the current days and age, and to become a bit more modern and at the same time colder feeling. And this is what's happening throughout the second half of the record. And this is the closing track that is actually meant to be a bonus track. It's not on the regular vinyl version, it's only on the limited double LP version. But in the end, we thought it was such a good track that we really wanted to have it available digitally as well. So it became part of the record kind of very late as an add-on.
All right. Well, it looks like we're out of time, as a matter of fact. So I would like to thank Robin from the Ocean for joining me here on the X. Stay safe and be well.
Thank you, good sir. Same to you.
All right. Bye now.